most of us, when we go through any social media platform, we can find out pretty quickly whether something is just overtly censored, if it's garbage, misinformation. And so we are living in that fake news propaganda phenomena. And I think most of us are recipients of a steady flow of propaganda over the pandemic, lockdowns, what have you. But the ties to the Wander Group, which was your question, focuses on communist China. And people need to stop thinking about Jack Ma and communist China like these are Silicon Valley CEOs. These are communists. And most of them have military backgrounds. And there's not a distinction in the communist framework between, commerce and military tactics. They're one and the same. And so what might surprise your audience is that the Wanda Group, backed by the CCP, purchased AMC movie theaters. They purchased Carmike Studios. You add up all the theater chains, it's about 98, 99% of our theater chains are owned by the Communist Chinese Party. Now, that's important because if you want to greenlight a film and have it be shown in movie theaters, you're going to talk about distribution. Someone's going to ask you, okay, before we invest in your film, let's talk about where it's going to be shown. And if it's critical of China culture or communist culture, it's not going to be shown in those theaters. So that's the first point. Second point is that the Chinese will only play 34 American films that we produce here in the States in China. And I want to say you've got about a 1.3 billion person audience that will watch movies. So the ones that aren't in slave camps, the ones that can watch the movies, that's a huge audience. So almost every major tentpole franchise, they send their scripts to communist script doctors who basically tell us what we can put in our big franchises. So any of these, it's the difference between a movie making $100 million and $1 billion franchise like The Joker, Iron Man 3. And you'll see it in very subtle ways. Like Iron Man 3 is a good example. The classic comic book villain for the Iron Man is the Mandarin. He's Chinese. Well, in that movie, you find out it's some guy that looks kind of like Bin Laden, played by Ben Kingsley. And then he's not really the Mandarin. You find out it's an American capitalist corporatist played by Guy Pearce. So how did that happen? Top Gun 2, I don't think it's come out, but there was a movie trailer. And some eagle-eyed folks saw Tom Cruise's iconic bomber jacket. And in Top Gun Part 1, he's got the flag of Taiwan. Well, China hates Taiwan. So if you look at the trailer, it looks like geometric shapes that kind of looks like Taiwan, but it is not Taiwan. And then another example, and then I'll move on because there's so many, because I've actually did a deep dive on all 34 films each year going back many years. Wow. As part of my academic research. First Man, the story of landing on the moon, Ryan Gosling. The most iconic thing about the moon landing is some American astronaut planted the American flag. That's not in the movie because someone from China said, it's not going to be in the movie. And we said, yes, sir. So it's not just movies. It's real estate. It's culture centers. They own the Iron Man in Hawaii. I think 70% of the commercial real estate in Vancouver and major ports owned by the Communist Chinese. So they are leveraging all of what they have. And what they have is a giant workforce that works for nothing, where they're crammed into little rooms and they don't mind harvesting the organs of people that they despise. And they use that to gain dominance. And instead of having a counterintelligence strategy to fight against this soft war power, we're still throwing tens of millions at the old iron. We'll buy some helicopters, we'll buy some ships. They don't think that way. Instead, they'll buy Legendary Studios for $3.5 billion, knowing that that's going to be the studio that indoctrinates our millennials from 18 to 27. So a lot of these huge feature films come out of that studio. Well, that's owned by the Chinese. So this soft power takeover is super important from this standpoint. We all heard about culture being, or politics being downstream from culture. Mm-hmm. culture is downstream from art. And when someone's taken our movies, they've taken our stories. And when we don't have our stories, we have no way to share our culture in a way that's positive. And it's no coincidence then that over the past 20 years, people's feelings about their own country, we have abysmal feelings towards America. And if you look at the popularity of communist China, they don't use Mao. They use Confucius, the guy that gives us our fortune cookies. They're very strategic about how they market themselves. And they do it at the university level. They do it in their movies. And we're left with a society that has truly lost its art, its stories, and we don't think we're hot shit anymore as Americans. We're constantly giving into these doctrines like critical race theory and telling everyone and just like whipping ourselves for being bad people. And I reject all of that.